Hello, today we're going to be taking a look at the Super VHS from Babyaudio. The Super VHS is a 1980s lo-fi inspired plugin, and it's quite a simple design, really user-friendly and really affordable at just $49. I've got a couple of instances of Super VHS in my session here, and I've just got this loop-based performance that I've whipped up, sort of 1980s inspired. And I'm going to show you a couple of different ways which you can use the Super VHS for saturation effects, for pitch shifting effects, bit crushing, as well as reverb effects and even some modulation. So let's take a look by starting off with this guitar track. So this guitar track, I'm going to disable the Super VHS, and as you can hear, it already sounds pretty good. It's well recorded. Now for this particular channel, what I thought I could do with is making it quite wide, so without any stereo panning or anything or double tracking, I have just used the Super VHS and I've clicked the magic button in the center. And what the magic button does is it creates a chorusing effect and it makes the information super wide. So let's hear it afterwards. And I've also got a bit of heat on here. So the heat is sort of like an analog tape saturation inspired effect. And the wash here, it sounds to me like a hall reverb. It's a big hall. So I've got it dialed back quite a bit because it really is a big sound, but I think it works really well on this track. And the drift is sort of like a fluctuating pitch LFO, and it's sort of quite unpredictable, and I guess that's the whole 80s inspired nostalgia behind it. So I'm going to go ahead and play the guitar track again, and I'm going to disable and enable the plugin, and I'm also going to exaggerate some of these effects here just so you can get an idea as to what each one is doing and how it's affecting the signal. So as you can hear, it's a pretty massive difference, and just with one plugin, I only have one plugin on this entire channel. So you really don't need much else than Super VHS to get some really cool 80s inspired tones. Now there is two sliders along the bottom here, and there's also two sliders along the top. The static is a sort of noise generated static sound. The mix knob's brilliant because that gets your dry wet mix working. And the output's good for gain attenuation, although it's not a automatic gain attenuation. When you boost the signals in here, you have to manually adjust it, but it's only a simple thing. The shape knob's particularly interesting because it's sort of like a bit crusher in a way that it actually completely changes the incoming signal and mangles it, and I think this could be quite useful for stuff like sound design. Again, I wouldn't use it on this track, but I can imagine using this on some synth patches, maybe even some drum loops. I'll give you a little taste as to what that sounds like here. And as you go along the slider, the shape becomes a little bit more serious and starts to change more and more. So as you can hear, that's really impacted the sound of that track. So if we have a look at some other tracks, I've actually got the Super VHS loaded up here on my drum loop, and I'm not using it for any of the drift, the wash. I'm just using it for the heat. So usually on individual channels or on a drum bus or just in a bus in general, I would use some form of analog saturation, something like decapitator or maybe a tape emulator. But the heat seems to do a really good job of this. So to me, it seems like the Super VHS could be more than just a modulation, 80s inspired sort of creativity tool. You could actually use it to add saturation to any sound source, which will help glue it in the mix and make it feel a little bit more vintage. So I'll give you a little before and after. It's a little bit more subtle, but I'm sure you can hear it and understand what's going on. Now, if I really wanted it to be a bit more crushed and distorted like that, I could actually bring that all the way up and then just rein in the mix knob. And that works really well for me. It's exactly the sort of sound that I'd be wanting from some sort of tape emulation plugin. So the Super VHS is on a lot of signals in here. There's in particular, there's the output signal synthesizer. And I've got an instance of that at the very start of the loop here, and this makes a huge difference to the sound. Again, I'm using that magic button, which really is magic. I love the way that it makes the signal super wide. So here's it before and after. So it's completely changing the sound of these audio sources and transforming them into something totally different. Whether you want to use it just for some subtle saturation, or you want to go mad with some sound design effects, and you can even maybe use this as like a white noise generator. You could probably bounce that to a new track and then use it for fade-ins, which is what I did down here. I created a white noise reverse effect to lead into a Lindrum sort of fill. And I basically recorded the static sound and then bounced it out, and this was what I got. So it really is quite versatile. You can get a lot of things going here. So if you're looking for modulation, if you're looking for some tape analog effects, or if you're looking for some sort of 80s inspired nostalgia on your tracks, the Super VHS is a really affordable choice, and it sounds fantastic, and it is really basic and simple to understand. I think a lot of people could get a lot of use out of this, and it really could transform your tracks into something completely different.